Today on Protea Conversations, we're joined by Nancy McClelland. Known across the profession as the dancing accountant, Nancy is a CPA with a passion for making accounting approachable, relevant, and community-focused. She's the founder of her own accounting practice, the host of the She Counts podcast, and the creator of Ask a CPA, a platform dedicated to answering real questions from entrepreneurs and professionals alike. Nancy's work sits at the intersection of technical expertise and authentic connection. She chose to pursue a CPA designation not just as a credential, but as a commitment to credibility and the highest standards of practice. From a firm room to a microphone and into the communities that generally need clarity and support, she has built bridges between complexity and clarity for hundreds, if not thousands, of listeners and clients. Today, we're going to explore her path to CPA, why community matters in accounting, and what she's learned from hosting a podcast, and how accountants can cultivate influence without compromising professionalism. Please join me in welcoming the dancing accountant. Nancy, welcome to Protea Conversations. It's so great to have you today.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. I'm really glad you invited me, Zane.
You know, the invite is iffy at best. You sort of volunteered, which made my life so much easier.
See, you've outed me.
I need to, because I need to own how bad I am at asking people to be a guest. Because
that is we actually talk about that in Ask a CPA a lot, that you have to exercise the ask muscle is the phrase that I use for it. So yeah, I guess I didn't give you an opportunity to exercise that because I was like, hey Zane, I'd love to do it.
And I appreciate it because you've been on my list for 14 months and I was just too scared to ask the question. It solved my problem, my inner fear of being rejected.
Oh my goodness. Well, my mantra is do it anyway. I'm just as scared as the next person, but I love pushing through the fear and doing the scary things. So regardless, I'm really glad to be here.
Me too. And I want to start by talking about your fantastic background because, normally everybody tries to be a little stodgy like me in my office going on here. And you've got a real world background that's moving in the breeze. And where are you at the moment?
I'm so glad that you asked. I'm in Mérida, Mexico, which is actually where we live during tax season. So beginning of January, all the way through the end of April, this is where you'll find me. This is not a virtual background. This is actually my beautiful patio, and it is hot and it is sunny and it does wonders I have a really severe neuropathy. Most of the people in the accounting world know that sometimes I have to use a cane. I've been in and out of the hospital for most of my life because of having to deal with that. And being here during the most stressful time of year makes a huge difference. I get to do my aqua physical therapy. The heat is really helpful. And it's also just awesome for stress management because one of the things that I've learned about spending time on screens is that every couple of hours, we should look away from our screens and focus on something in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And that can actually really, really, really help your nervous system. And when I do that, I focus on something in the distance, and it might be the hummingbird that has come to visit our hibiscus tree, right? It's not just reminding me to look away from that computer and to take a break and pause and breathe, but I'm actually focusing on the natural world, and that's also been really helpful.
I mean, I think, starting off strong with some great advice for people over there. I think we all get sucked into our work and forget there's an outside world. And
It's so true. And I was one of those people for most of my life. I'll admit I live in Chicago the rest of the year, right? But Chicago during tax season is a really rough place to be, especially if you have neuropathic issues and especially if you have seasonal affective disorder, which I also do. And I want to bring my best to the hardest time of year for my team and for my clients, and of course for my own mental health, my own physical health, and my relationship with my husband. And this was sort of an accident. When it happened, we had been working up toward spending at least 6 weeks of the winter away from Chicago, somewhere sunny. And so I would have a work retreat post March 15th every year. So as soon as those S Corp and partnership returns were done, we would come down to Mexico. Mérida is especially wonderful because it's the second safest city in North America behind Quebec City. Yeah, a lot of people have been reaching out to me saying, oh no, the cartel violence. And I'm like, yeah, we're on the other side of the country geographically and also culturally. It's just very different here because it's 60% Mayan culture. It's like very focused on community, and I keep telling people it's like asking somebody in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, if they're being affected by like if riots break out in Los Angeles or
Yeah.
something. It's just a world away for us. It's very sad, but that's not us. And we chose Merida because the whole city is fiber. And so we have really good internet here, really calm, beautiful, lovely community. And so we were here during our 3-week work retreat because my firm is 100% remote, even though we have a hyper local client base
Hmm.
back home in Chicago in my neighborhood. And so we were here for that 3-week work retreat period where I was just heads down in my computer churning out tax returns. And the pandemic broke out while we were here. And we initially couldn't get home. And
Oh,
we were
wow.
like, oh no, what are we going to do? And then we saw how well they were handling it here. And we were like, maybe we don't want to go back home. So we decided to stay for a little longer and then a little longer. And 3 weeks turned into 16 months.
Wow.
Yeah. 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 And because our team was already set up to be 100% remote, we've been remote for almost 10 years now. That part wasn't a problem. It was the clients learning about Zoom and the clients feeling like they could be supported
Hmm.
even though I wasn't there physically.
Yep.
And of course, it was the pandemic. Nobody could meet with anybody. So they got used to that really fast. And in the first 2 months of the pandemic, maybe 3 months, I had twice weekly free Zoom sessions for not just my clients, but any of their friends who were running small businesses. So they learned very quickly that I've got their back no matter what. And now
Yep.
they don't even ask where I am. We just, when they need me, I'm there.
Yeah, it's always so interesting because, when we started Protea 12 years ago, it was the same thing. Like, we're just going to work remotely wherever we need to be, just be it. Like, it doesn't really matter. Just get the work done. From a business owner standpoint, I had to learn what technologies there are, and everybody's like, oh, you're so cutting edge. I'm like, no, just wanting to work remotely. You sort of learn how to use these things. It's not that I'm particularly good at it. It's forced us to do it. But it is interesting how during the pandemic, I think a lot of our clients that were in place are like, oh, you guys are remote, right? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
you know this. You've been working with us a lot of years. They're like, oh, so you're just going to carry on? I'm like, yeah, we're all good. Nobody had to fetch a computer. Nobody had to do anything. We just carried on. I mean,
absolutely.
obviously we had to look after our people, and there was other things we had to put in place to deal with what was going on at that time. But from a work standpoint, we were able to just keep moving. And for
Yeah.
us, it's terrible to say, but it was a great thing because
Yeah.
we saw significant growth in the size of the business during that period of time because we were so much better equipped to be able to deal with what changes were happening and be able to move and be flexible and just continue to work where some of our competitors or similar type of firms just really struggled because I have stories of competitors having just got bigger offices because they just needed to keep space between their people because they didn't know how to send them home because really hard to send a desktop to somebody's house, right? Like they just
Yeah.
weren't equipped for it.
We definitely were, and you said it sounds terrible, but actually one of my other mantras is that the good and the bad coexist.
Hmm.
They don't cancel each other out. And so I think it's important that we find the positives and joy and gratitude even during the worst of times. I know, I could say that right now. Things are very, very challenging in society for so many different reasons, but that doesn't mean joy doesn't exist, right? That doesn't
Yep.
mean the beauty isn't there. I would say don't, you shouldn't say it's a terrible thing to say it this way. I think it's a wonderful thing that you found some good in that time during the pandemic that was so challenging for so many people. And I think one of the things that probably distinguished your team as well as ours, I know for ours, is that we already had company culture figured out in a remote
Hmm.
environment. So part of that is training and part of that is management and part of that is workflow. But part of that is recognizing that the people on the other side of that wall, whether it's a physical wall like a cubicle or
Hmm.
an office wall, or it's that sort of imaginary wall of the space and the distance between us and the other people on our team. When we tear down that wall, which is something I talk about a lot when we're talking about tax pros and bookkeepers working together, when we tear down that wall and we see the human behind that role, we see the person behind the profession, as John Garrett has often said. I think that that makes our cultures so much stronger because we know we can lean on each other. We know we see the other people as human first and the job that they're fulfilling second. And I can't say that that developed for us because of the pandemic because we were already operating that way.
Hmm.
I would say that because we were already that way, it was a strength of ours during the pandemic to be able
Yeah.
to lean on each other during such a difficult time.
Yeah, I know. It's, one of the things that always like understanding people's schedules during that time was always the hardest for a lot of people to go with because, we all experienced it very differently depending on what our households look like. And, I had young kids and all of a sudden they weren't in school. It's a very different experience than if we had obviously team members that were all by themselves. And that's a very different experience that they had to go through, very lonely experience. And they needed, different types of comforts and interventions to help them. But we could only put those in place because we knew what was going on in each person, or at least
Exactly.
to the point that they led
Yes.
us, right? Obviously, we don't know all the details. So as long as we knew sort of generally what their life would
Yeah,
look
because
like,
they felt
because we've had the
comfortable sharing
conversations.
those
Yeah.
with you. Yeah, you created an environment where they wanted to share. One of the things that we love to do is we have quarterly happy hours. They're paid happy hours where we send everybody like a charcuterie kit or a snack box, and we send them a cocktail kit or a wine tasting or whatever. And we get on a Zoom and everybody's answered a few questions ahead of time on like a little survey,
Yep.
and we use those answers to sort of guide the conversation, and we just hang out with each other and we talk. And so everybody knows everybody else's families, everybody else knows. I mean, our team's small, but there are only 9 of us, right? And I'm the only full-time person. But still, in that group of 9, like we know each other's hobbies, we know each other's children, we know their partners, we know where they live, we know what excites them, we know what they don't like, we know their
Hmm.
favorite charities, we know so much. And that makes a really huge difference for us. And so I really applaud you for intentionally creating that kind of environment at Protea.
Yeah, we try. All right, it's difficult. We are a little bit bigger right now, so it is always a little harder, and we have to adjust the way we do it. There's more than 40 of us at this point, so
Wow. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way you do things changes as the size of the team grows.
It does. Yeah. And it has to. Absolutely. But I think that you can build in a lot of personal moments in a team like that, whether it's through smaller departments or, your management team or your support team. And I don't know, it's kind of like cross training, but instead of cross training on clients, you're cross training on team personalities.
No, and I tell people all the time, the more you get to know people, the easier it is to work with them because then you can
Absolutely.
spot when something's really going wrong, right? Because a lot of people will just keep it quiet. Doesn't matter what type of culture you're going. But if you worked with that person enough, you paid attention enough, you understand their ticks. All of a sudden, you can be like, I think something's up, and you can
Yeah.
obviously either deal with yourself, escalate it, whatever you need to do. But if you can't even identify it because you haven't taken the time to get to know the people that you're working with, you just leave yourself in a really tough situation because then you're running blind, and that's not super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So a lot of tangents already, and I really wanted to. I always like to normally start with
Surprise.
not surprised at all, and these have been great. But I did want to sort of step back and go like, I like to ask this question all the time, and it might just be a boring answer, and we can move past it really quickly. But how did you
It's
become an
me.
accountant?
There's no way it's gonna be boring, Zane. Come on.
Well, we'll see. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I tripped and fell. It happened. But let's see. How did you decide to become an accountant? Like, where did that come from? I mean, you've been running your business for a long time right now,
You just
and
called out my age. You totally did.
I
Yeah,
I
no.
said no numbers.
I'm proud of it. This is year 25. I'll have
Crazy.
been running my own business for 25 years. Later this year, we're going to celebrate that milestone. Well, it is a boring answer. I started out the normal way most accountants do, by majoring in music education. Pretty typical.
Seems
Um,
pretty obvious. Why would you go any other route?
Right, right. I honestly, I had no idea I was interested in accounting. I actually, if you could go back and find me from that time period, I would have said no way. I would have thought quite the opposite because back then I didn't realize how much of this work was about education. Whether it's clients or team members or the work I do now with Ask a CPA and the She Counts podcast, which is mostly for colleagues. And I knew I wanted to teach. I didn't know what topic I wanted to teach because I'm literally interested in everything. And so there was a job. I went to the University of Michigan, and there was a job while I was there. I was looking for a part-time gig that opened up at the Ann Arbor School for the Performing Arts. And it was part-time music theory teacher and part-time office manager. And oddly enough, I was the only person who applied for that job
I
because it's
mean,
weird.
it is weird.
It's
I'm still
totally
trying to
weird.
get my head around how those two even go
They
together,
don't. They
but
have nothing to do with each other. The only reason they came up with this crazy idea was that the way that the music theory training worked, the student would have a 45-minute long piano lesson, and then they would come to the music theory studio, which I was running, and they would have a music theory ear training lesson with me for 15 minutes. So they would go for an hour, they'd have these two different lessons, and then I would have 15 minutes before the next student came up. And so 15 minutes teaching, 15 minutes off, 15 minutes teaching, 15 minutes off. And they were like, oh, well, the person can just be the office manager in those off 15 minutes. It was a very, very weird and wonderful job. It suited me perfectly. And while I was there, I realized I was really good at the bookkeeping part, and they were not. But I was also really good at communicating with people who were generally more artist musician types. And there were a lot of people out there, a lot of colleagues who I thought were really good music theory teachers, but not very many people who could do what I did and bridged those worlds. And so I was there for quite a while. I really loved that job. And it was from there that I ended up getting a recommendation for a full-time role when I left, when I was graduated from college at Curtin and Alf, which was a world famous violin making studio that was also in Ann Arbor. So that was pretty amazing because I ended up becoming their business manager, and I got to combine these worlds. I got to entertain really famous violinists. I mean, I met, Yehudi Menuhin and Elmar Oliveira and Maxine Roach, and it was just it was a wonderful experience in every possible way. It was really amazing. And that was actually how I got into accounting, because I was doing the bookkeeping there as well. And their CPA, Teresa Briggs, she saw in me what I hadn't yet seen in myself, which is actually one of our early She Counts episodes was on the topic of mentorship, where
mhm.
we see in each other. We very, very often fail to see in ourselves. She was that person for me, and she was like, "You're really good at this, and I think you would really like tax." And so when it was time to move on to my next role, she gifted me my first CCH Master Tax Guide, and that made all the difference in my life. Her faith in me, and also her being able to see a career path that I hadn't. So when I moved to Chicago, I ended up becoming an accounting supervisor. I left there eventually to do fractional CFO work. And from there, I ended up starting my own bookkeeping and tax firm. And it wasn't until later that I went back to school and I got my master's, because I wanted to learn how to do advisory work.
Mhm.
I had clients who were, we were taking care of their bookkeeping and their tax, but they would go to a business coach for the analysis and the what if scenarios and the projections. And I really wanted to be able to help them out myself with that. So I got my master's to learn how to do that. And then I got my CPA. And the only reason I did that, my clients did not care at all, and my job did not change at all. But I love continuing education, and I would go to conferences all the time. And
Mhm.
when colleagues at a tax conference would find out that I wasn't a CPA, I would get talked down to. It's a really, yeah. The whole concept of somebody being quote unquote just a bookkeeper is pervasive in our industry. It is nearly as much so now as it was back then. It hasn't improved as much as you would think through the years. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's the bane of my existence. It's one of the main reasons that I started Ask a CPA, which is this community that I run for
Yep.
bookkeepers who want to level up, learn how to prepare tax ready books, and really
Yep.
collaborate with tax pros. Because I know firsthand what it feels like to be a bookkeeper at a conference with colleagues who are like, "You're just a bookkeeper." And that's ridiculous. We need bookkeepers. We need bookkeeping and accounting professionals in order to do the tax side of things effectively, in order to do the analysis effectively. And so that was why I ended up getting my CPA. So, like I said, pretty boring, normal path that I think most people are pretty familiar with.
Sure. If you want to call it more. But it is a really interesting one. I'm still a little stuck on this dual role teacher slash office manager. Like
Yeah,
I'm trying to roll my head around. I'm like, it's still not making sense. But we'll just keep
it
moving
works for
through
me.
though.
I'm lucky that they came up with that crazy idea because it meant that I was the one who got hired for the position because literally they had no other applicants for that position.
You literally
And it
might be the
changed
only
my
person in the
life,
whole
you know?
world that could have actually done it. So, you know, they were looking for a needle and in the haystack, and they definitely
They
found it.
found it. Lucky me.
Yeah. So tell me, why did you decide to go it alone? That's always an interesting question for me, for people. Like, what was that? What was that point that said, I want to go it alone. I want to do my own thing.
Um, this one I actually think is a common response, which is it was an accident. I didn't mean to. I had no desire to run my own business. I'm, to be honest, not really gifted at it. There are things I do really well in life, but operations is not one of them. So I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. I didn't used to be very good at hiring. That's something I've had to learn along the way. I never thought I would be a good entrepreneur, and that was never a goal of mine. But what happened was when I left my role as accounting supervisor, because a new CFO came in there, and she and I did not get along with each other, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. My husband and I were getting married that, and it was a DIY wedding. I was doing a lot of planning for it. And he and I decided, you know what, why don't I just temp so that I can focus on planning the wedding and taking care of my mom who had just had breast cancer surgery and reconstructive surgery. And I was staying with her for a while. So I decided to temp and got placed as a CFO, marginal CFO in a place that had lost theirs. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Will you stay? And I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not really interested in staying, but you guys do have a lot of problems, and I would be willing to come on board as an independent contractor on a limited basis, just 2 to 3 days a week, to get you cleaned up. And then I'll help you find somebody who can take over this role. And, when you do outsourced work for a company as an independent contractor, you now run your own business. That's how
Yep.
that works. That's what that means. I have to let people know about that all the time. People who are like, "Oh, well, I've been freelancing for years, but now I'm starting a business." I'm like, "Guess what?
Yeah.
You already did." So that was me. I was in that situation. And then people who knew that that's what I was doing were like, "Oh, hey, can you help me with my books?" Or, "Oh, hey, can you help me with my taxes?" Or, "Oh, hey, can you help me with my budget?" And so one by one, I just kept taking on clients. And then eventually I had too much work, and I brought on my first team member. Um, and I think that was, when was that? Let me see. All of this was happening in 2001. I didn't bring on my first team member until 2010. So I did it very solo for quite some time before. And now we're at 9, which is pretty awesome. Although, as I pointed out before, I'm the only full-time person. That's one of the reasons that we work the way that we do, is that most of the people who work at the Dancing Accountant also run their own firms, bookkeeping, or they do operations, or they do tax, or whatever. And they already have expertise, and they already have experience working with clients. They already have the experience of working remotely and working from home, and managing multiple clients at one time. And they just don't like working by themselves. They
Hmm.
also want the camaraderie and the support that you get when you work on a team. And so they basically give us their excess capacity. And most of the folks on the team have been with us for quite a while.
That's amazing. You touched the name, the dancing accountant. I read that the quick story on it, but sort of how did that come about?
Well, I love to dance. That part is probably pretty obvious. I'm not necessarily very good at it. It's so funny. We'll be at conferences and people are like, show us some moves, teach us how to dance. And I'm like, yeah, so I do 1960s go-go dancing, which is like the tall white boots and the Nancy Sinatra, these boots are
Hmm.
made for walking kind of thing. Most people aren't very interested in learning that kind of dance. It's more performance stuff. Although I love teaching little kids. At festivals, we'll teach little kids how to dance, and that's one of my favorite things. Totally making sense with my undergraduate degree being in music education. I used to
Hmm.
teach childhood musical development classes, so that's always really fun. And then the other dance that I do, 1980s jazzercise, like fake jazzercise, where the audience is dancing along with you. And I've actually done that at a bunch of accounting conferences as well, which is a blast. And so I get to wear in both of those, I get to wear silly costumes and get to listen to the kind of music that I love the best. Many years ago, I was trying to, my company name was Nancy McClelland LLC, right? Like, talk about boring. That was the not exactly star-studded, exciting, like, ooh, she sounds really neat and fun and cool. So I was trying to come up with a better name for my company, and coincidentally, timing wise, I was going to a local park, which is a pro bono client of mine in the neighborhood. I mentioned we have a hyper local client base, right?
Yep.
So even though we're remote and our team members are all over the country. We don't outsource to foreign countries. We only hire people from the United States. Our client base is hyper local, not just Chicago, but like my neighborhood in Chicago and the three surrounding neighborhoods. And we're very
Wow.
like shop local, shop small, which is why our team members are only from the United States. Is that I want to try to be
Yep.
consistent with that, stay local as much as I can.
Hmm.
And a few of our folks were from Chicago, but have since moved away. And so, anyway, I was in full costume with my go-go boots and everything. And I was going to this park because they had an event where we were going to be teaching little kids how to do go-go dancing, like I was just
Hmm.
mentioning. And I show up, and not one, but two clients were there. They knew each other and were picnicking with their kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am wearing this silly costume and about to be dancing in front of these people who are supposed to take me seriously. And I took a deep breath. I mentioned how one of my things is I'm just as afraid as the next person, but I do it anyway. So I took a deep breath and I walked up, and the client, who is still a client to this day, actually, she and I were emailing just this morning. She said, "Look, kids, it's the dancing accountant." And I was like, there it is. That's the name, because it's going to keep away the people that are turned off by that. And
Hmm.
it's going to attract to me the people who are like, I want to work with somebody like that. I want to work
Yeah.
with somebody who's fun and vibrant and shows her real personality and likes to wear silly costumes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I even have pictures of me in my go-go outfits on my website now.
Yeah. No, that is incredible. And I mean, it is who you are. So why not put it out there? And
Yeah.
I think it's always important for people to understand when they're going to work with you, they're working with a real person, right? And
Yes,
it is who I am, and just
it
accept
is.
it.
And I want my clients to be who they are. And it actually works really well because our neighborhood is a fun, quirky neighborhood, Logan Square. It's wonderful. And I've been in this neighborhood for 26 years,
Well,
27 years. I can't remember now. And I know a ton of the people. It's funny. Sometimes friends will come to visit, and, we'll be walking down the street and I'm saying hi to everyone, or we'll go to a restaurant or a bar, and, they'll buy us around because we know each other. And they'll say, "Oh, you're like the mayor of Logan Square." And I'll be like, "No, no, don't be silly. I'm like the deputy assistant secretary to the mayor, though." That part might be true. And I really love it. I love that. And I love that everybody knows that I'm the dancing accountant. And like the Chamber of Commerce has been a long time client, and the farmers market, and they actually helped us celebrate our first anniversary. We had a big, huge party with music and dance in one of the local parks, and they helped us put that on. It was open to the whole community. It's a pretty amazing way to be. To be able to be your true self and have your clients attracted to you because of that. Because they're all quirky and cool and fun also. Like these are the bars and the cafes and the restaurants where we hang out. These are the stores where we go shopping, and they
mhm.
all bring their unique, vibrant personalities to the neighborhood and make it a better community. And so I feel like we're really in it together, and they know that their success is my success and vice versa, that we support each other.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Having clientele that sort of understands who you are, and then they can see, well, this person will probably understand, what we're going through, the type of people we are. And
Absolutely.
it's one of the things why I like it, love being in a niche is that I get to speak the same language as them, right? And you effectively do the same way through your personality, where I'm doing it by learning the terms they use and the
Yes.
lifestyle they live in. But I think this is advice for anybody who's trying to start a business, really, right? Is understand who those clients are and make sure that you're talking the same language, because
And
that communication, which you've mentioned a few times so far in this conversation, is so critical. And not
Zane, I
talking
want to
down
make
to
sure you
people is
know that I wasn't like that always. I mean, like, we're not like born knowing how to run our businesses. Were you?
yeah. No, I tripped and fell and became an entrepreneur. Like it was not part of
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to reassure people who are listening. Yes, if you're starting a business, that's a really good way to do it. But if you've already been running a business for quite some time and it doesn't feel right to you, you have agency. Like you can
Mhm.
change. And
Yep.
that is what we did. I started out by wearing suits, which was like so not working for my client base.
Yep.
I definitely didn't have my ideal client profile defined. So I wasn't necessarily I was saying yes to clients that were not a good fit. I wasn't necessarily attracting the clients that were a good fit. It took me a long time to figure it out, and I want to make sure people feel like it's not like everybody else has got it figured out and you don't. Like we are all
Mhm.
figuring it out as we go along, and you get to do that too.
Yeah, and every day I'm still figuring it out, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a little bit different. I mean, I started by telling people how scared I was to ask Nancy to be on my
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
but
that's such a good point.
we're constantly learning, constantly adjusting, constantly changing. But I think the thing is that if there is a quirk that you have, go with it. One
Yeah.
of mine is if you want to have lunch with me in the summer and it's a hot day, I'm showing up in shorts. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are. Like I'm in shorts. Like it's just happening, and you just gotta live with that. And people are like shorts to business meeting. Like yeah, it's hot. Like I'm not going to sit there uncomfortable just because I'm supposed to wear long pants. Like that's ridiculous.
And I will let you know that if I can hang out with clients wearing go-go boots and a mini skirt, you could definitely wear shorts to a meeting.
100%.
Yeah,
So, but you have been doing this for 25 years, so you got to be doing something right. What's the
maybe.
piece of advice that we all need to know? We're just celebrating 12 years of Protea. How do I get 13 more years out of this? Because 25 seems like a long way away.
You know, it seems a long way away when you're in year 2 or 4 or 10, but when you get to 25 and you look back, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. It really hasn't. I mean, I think that the best piece of advice that I could give someone, aside from be yourself, like we've just been talking about this whole time, is uh, they're actually two. They're related to each other. Number one, don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be asked. For years and years and years, I wanted to do public speaking. I wanted to do education on a bigger scale than my one on one client sessions. And I kept thinking somebody was going to invite me on their podcast or wherever onto a stage. And one of the things that I learned was build your own stage, right? Like for me, not just conferences, but building Ask a CPA, this community,
Hmm.
starting She Counts, this podcast, going to your local chamber of commerce and saying, hey, I've got a topic that's really important for small businesses in this area to know. I'd like to speak at your next event. And then in my case, we filmed that and I put it in my speaker reel. And that was how I started getting speaking gigs. And now I give webinars all the time and I'm on lots of the stages. I'm not saying that the stage is necessarily where you want to be, but whatever it is that you do want to be, figure that out, be intentional about it. Where do you want to go? Determine those goals. And then don't wait to be asked. Make it happen. And to that end, in the meantime, if you're going to try to make the thing that you most want to have happen, you've got to identify. And I wish I had done this a lot sooner, a lot, like a decade sooner. Got to identify where you're not as gifted and where you don't need to be. So, for example, operations. Hire for the roles that you're bad at. I got myself into some messes that honestly, there are a few of them I'm still digging out of. But if I had realized that like the SOPs have to come first and it can't all live in my head, or that
Hmm.
while I'm really good at some things, I'm not at others, or that I don't need to be the person who's doing it, that delegating doesn't mean you're above doing menial tasks. It also doesn't mean you'll lose control over everything. It just means there are 24 hours in a day and you want to spend them doing the most you things possible, which are those things that you're flexing that ask muscle on. You're not waiting to be asked, you're just doing them. And the stuff that you do that has the most value being you doing them, the rest of the stuff can be delegated. Pick the things that are not highest value for you being the person that has to do them, and the things you're not as good at, and hire for those roles. And hiring doesn't have to mean you're bringing on a full-time employee at all. It could mean find a colleague who's really good at operations and ask if they will help you out. Hire them
Mm.
as a contractor, or have people, like when we implemented Double. I'm really technology forward and progressive in that way, but I'm not good at implementing it. And so we hired Hughes and Strong to implement Double when we decided to use them, because I knew I was not that person and we
Yeah.
didn't have anybody on our team who was that person. So there are a lot of things you can do where you can have somebody help you get to that point where you can then realize whatever your goals are. In my case, that was education and public speaking and
Yeah.
my community and the podcast. Whatever yours is, you still have to do the same thing that I did. You've got to find the things where you don't need to be and have somebody else do those things and make room for your goals.
No, that is great advice. I think one of the things that becomes tricky in that sort of thought process, though, is the difficult balance between what you're really good at versus what actually adds value to the business.
Yes.
That begins the tough part, because there's things that I'm really good at, but I can't be spending time on them in my business. Like, it is absolutely pointless, because just because it makes me feel good doesn't mean it's good for
Yeah.
everybody else, right? And I think that at times becomes the really tricky portion, especially when people are new to this business, don't really maybe understand their strengths and weaknesses yet. And we can quickly get sucked into the thing that I know I can do well because I get to tick it off my list. I get those endorphins. I feel
Yeah.
really good about myself, but maybe they don't add that much value to the business. How do you
Yeah.
go about sort of balancing that part of make myself feel good versus make everybody feel good, sort of?
Yeah. Gosh, I ask my team members, I'll be honest. I think that they're your best. I can't remember who it was that told me this, but somebody, it might have been Hector Garcia. Somebody was saying that, we think that our team members don't know our weaknesses and we don't want to expose ourselves to them. We don't want to expose our weaknesses to them. But in fact, if there's anybody who knows what your biggest weaknesses are, it's probably your team members. They
Yeah.
already know. So ask for their help. They are a huge value beyond the actual work that they're doing. Their perspectives and their insights and their imagination, like all of those things, are extremely valuable. In my case, I'm extremely lucky because one of the people on my team is my husband, who knows me very, very, very well. And he was able to help me focus on what I'm most passionate about, that
Hmm.
will leave the greatest impact on the industry. He was like, "Why are you doing this thing that I might enjoy doing?" I love QuickBooks. I really, really, really love doing bookkeeping. I love
Hmm.
doing reconciliations. I love analyzing the books and reclassifying for accuracy. I love thinking about how a client can run their business better. I really love all of this stuff. But at this point, I have only given myself one client. I don't even do my own books anymore, because I want to know what it feels like to be the client who's getting the questions from my team
Yep.
members. And so Allie, one of our bookkeepers, she does my books. But I actually have one client where I'm the only one who does their books, because I want to make sure that I'm still in it and I don't forget
Yep.
how to do it. But it doesn't matter how much I love doing the bookkeeping. It absolutely doesn't. I love CAS work and I love tax work, but that's not where I should be. I should be
Yeah.
reviewing the senior accountant's work. I should be reviewing my tax CPA's work, and signing off. And that's it. And that's it. And everything else should be the client meetings that have to be the person who's, kind of the salesperson, the ask a CPA work, the she counts work, the teaching, the content creation. I'm also a writer. I have a column for MSN and I have an award-winning blog that I've been doing for, God, I don't even remember. I think 15 years. It's been a really long time.
Yeah.
Those are the things nobody else can do, right? Like nobody else can
Yep.
be that person. Nobody else can be Nancy, the dancing
Hmm.
accountant. And so if no matter how much you love it, if it's not meeting your end goals about what you're most passionate about, then have you heard of the Japanese concept of ikigai, where it's the Venn diagram of what you're good at, what you're most passionate about, and what serves society the best? And where all three of those things meet, that's where you should be focusing your energy. And like, I want to make a difference in our industry. I want bookkeepers and tax pros and their shared clients. I want them to be acting as a team. I think
Yep.
it is one of the things that can actually help the pipeline crisis that we have in the CPA world the most. I think it's one of the ways that we can interact with each other as people first, as humans, like we were talking about earlier. I think it serves the client best. This is my thing, Zane. This is my,
Hmm.
I want to make this change. That's where those three things
Yeah.
line up. So you may be really good at something, but maybe that's not serving society the best. So if you think of it with all three of those layers and where they overlap, I feel like that's a really good perspective.
No, I think that's great advice. You have mentioned ask a CPA a few times right now, and from
Can
what
you
you've
tell
shared,
it's like my greatest passion in life? I love it so much. It's like
it
the
is.
only thing in the world where 100% of it I love. I love 100% of it.
No, and for what it does, it's amazing because I am still very frustrated when I talk to tax people. Even my favorite best tax people, it still drives me nuts that they're.
Yes.
I had one the other day. They're like, "Why is it like this?" I'm like, "Because that's the way accounting is done." Like, what are you talking about? But they're like, "But they're on cash basis." I'm like, I don't give a shit if they're on cash basis. They're trying to run a business, not get a tax like it happens with
Right.
the best of
The
people like
best of
that.
them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which is why, I've got this pet peeve that all the big, and when I say big, top 100 firms all want to get into CAS right now because honestly they can't do it right. But we'll skip past that because that'll just be my personal,
No, it's not
hole
your
to bury myself
personal.
in.
It's not. It's not. It is really frustrating. I actually gave a talk a couple years ago for Insightful Accountants Future Forward virtual conference that was about this confluence where like the tax firms are all like, "Ooh, hey, we could eat up some of that market," and
Hmm.
bookkeeping firms and CAS practices that are already doing it are like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. We can overlap and we can connect with each other, but to some extent, like we've got experts here already." And
Yep.
we're really good at doing this. And some of these firms that are branching out into CAS are not thinking about the personal relationship. They're not thinking about the multiple touch points and getting to know your client and building trust and knowing the industry inside and out, such as yourselves. So yeah, it's not just you, I promise, Zane. It's not just you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always the biggest frustration because if somebody doesn't get you the tax stuff, great, they got to extend whatever. Like if you don't get accounting stuff, like the whole business starts to crumble. You can't just
Yes.
like, oh, you missed the deadline, sorry, till next month. Like it doesn't work that in CAS. Like you got to pester, you got to knock on the door, you got to
Yes.
drag that client along. I mean, people will say that's not what you're supposed to be, but it is. Like that's how
No,
you
it
help the
is.
client. Like we're there to, and there's a bit of a babysitting role in it, and everybody talks about the psychology roles and everything else, but you can't do that if all you care about is, the billable hour and getting the tax return done. Like it
Yes.
doesn't operate the same way, and it's a different mindset. I've never done a tax return in my life. I plan to die never of doing a tax return because I'm just not
All
good at
right, all
that.
right. Hold on, Zane. Hold on, Zane, though, because I got a whole thing. Yes, okay. This is where Ask a CPA comes in. You should probably join our community because what we're teaching is not how to do tax returns, but we do teach what do you as a bookkeeper or CAS practitioner need to know about taxes to make sure that your books are first and foremost being used, as you point out, as a real-time managerial business making engine, right? Like this is your decision making resource, number one. And secondly, it also needs to get onto the tax return properly.
Yep.
It does. That is a compliance thing that is very important. And so we teach bookkeepers, well, what do you need to know about how to make your books so that they could potentially be both accrual basis and then convert to tax basis for
Yep.
tax time? How do we make sure that our chart of accounts makes sense for their entity type? How do
Yep.
we make sure that we're handing things off at the end of the year when it is tax time in a way that makes it so that the package that goes to the tax pro makes sense to them and they don't have to duplicate any of your work. They don't have to ask all the questions. You've already taken care of all of the things, many of which are things that a tax pro would normally handle that they don't need to handle. I mean, we came up with this whole process internally at our firm because we were doing a bad job with that handoff from the bookkeeper to the tax pro, right? And when we came up internally with a better way of doing it, we were like, wait a minute, why is the tax pro doing X, Y, and Z? They don't need to do that. We can take care of that for
Yeah.
them. And it has made our tax seasons so much better. And it also means the clients are better cared for because a lot of this stuff is now happening on a monthly basis, whereas
Yeah.
previously we were doing it on an annual basis. So I
Yeah.
agree with you
Well,
wholeheartedly.
no, I mean, it's what we developed a good process internally. And it's one of the reasons we get so much referrals from CPAs because
Yes.
we improve their margins because we give them a file that they just go and fill in numbers and off they go.
Yes, exactly. I love that you said that so much because it's actually pretty easy to convince the bookkeepers that they should be in relationship, in collaboration with the tax pros. It's harder to convince the tax pros that this helps them as well. And
Yep.
unfortunately, a lot of tax pros are disdainful and they're not focused on education. They don't answer their emails or they fail to give feedback, and so the same mistakes happen over and over. I'm excited because I got to speak on this topic at Bridging the Gap last year, and Engage invited me to speak on that topic this year. So I do think that the message is spreading and people are recognizing that we can't do all of this
Yep.
ourselves as tax pros.
Let's hear about the podcast.
She
It's
counts.
on fire. Everybody's loving it, talking about it all the time. I've listened to a couple episodes, maybe not as many as I should, and mostly just because I'm terrible at listening to podcasts in general. I'm the worst accountant. I never listen to accounting podcasts, so I never get there. But, people love it. I hear about it all the time. I know you guys are doing a great job. Tell me about how it got started and sort of the impact that you're seeing with the community.
I'm Thank you so much for asking about it. That's extremely kind of you. Yes, this is my other big passion project. Ask a CPA is huge for me. She Counts is the other thing where just it's that alignment of passion and ability and what we can offer to society because it was born out of my co-host Question Telka. She and I would often WhatsApp each other and we would have these conversations that I felt like they were very raw and they were very honest and they were often about what life for women in accounting is like and the joys and the challenges that are really specific to that and how being able to talk with each other and with a couple of other WhatsApp groups of our women friends, the Theater of Public Speaking, run by Misty Mejia being one of them, we felt less alone. We felt less alone. And at some point, she was like, we should start a podcast that is taking our WhatsApp conversations and the conversations that we have, at the bar after a long day of conferencing or, when we get to go on a bookkeeping buds retreat or something like that. Taking those conversations and making them accessible to other people in accounting. And I'm going to say people because I hope that there are a lot of men who listen to this podcast as well, because shocker, they work with women too. And maybe understanding the perspective of what it's like to be a woman in accounting will help us all work better together,
Yep.
especially if you are a male who is managing a team with women on it. I think it can be a really helpful perspective. But ultimately, I mean, it was born out of not wanting any woman in accounting to feel alone and to invite them into our space and our conversations. We call it real talk for women in accounting because it really is real talk. I mean, it is unfiltered. We say some things out loud that are scary sometimes. We did a whole two-part live episode on sexual harassment. We have talked about divorce. We've talked about caring for aging parents, how to make business happen when life happens. We celebrate as well. We have a whole episode coming up soon with Valerie Heckman on making a ta-da list. So it's the good and the bad and everything in between about being a woman in accounting. And it is definitely a passion project. We're trying to find our audience, it did take off very quickly, which is very gratifying. Randy Crabtree, who was a recent guest of yours on the podcast, he actually had us on the Unique CPA podcast to announce it, which was
Hmm.
really lovely. And so we've had great support and lots of engagement, and we've presented at quite a few live conferences. We'll be doing it. It hasn't been announced yet, but I know she'll be okay with me saying it here because she was one of your guests, Erin Pohan. She runs the Wave Seattle conference for women
Yep.
in accounting, and we're going to be doing a live recording of She Counts there as well. She's been a really amazing supporter of it. So you can go to shecounts.show, SHOW, and learn more. One of the things that we love about it is that it's actually produced by Earmark, which means you can listen to it on any platform out there, no matter what your favorite is. If you go to shecounts.show and you hit that subscribe button in the upper right-hand corner, it gives you a list that's like pages long of the various places you can go. So I really appreciate you highlighting it. Thank you, Zane.
Yeah, and I'm going to commit to listening to more episodes, seeing that I am a person who has a team of 40 plus and we're only 4 males. So I am
Hey.
managing a lot of, female
Wow,
accountants.
40 plus and you only have 4 males.
Correct.
Zane, you are somebody that we would love to have on the podcast because for a while we've been wanting to do a series where we interview men who run firms that have like a different percentage in terms of genders. So that would be, I did not know that about you. Thank you. You are now
Yeah.
on my list and I'm not shy about asking. So it'll
Yeah. And
happen.
some public pressure right there. So
Yeah. Yeah,
get the
definitely.
hive start scratching. And Nancy, I really appreciated your time. What's the one piece of advice you would tell anybody entering the accounting profession today, just to set them off on the right foot?
Set them off on the right foot. Be true to yourself. But if you're going to be true to yourself, you have to figure out who yourself is. And that is a reminder that I actually have back home in Chicago on my desk. I have a Post-it note up there that says, be the best version of yourself you can be, but remember who you are. You got to figure that part out first.
Yeah. I love that. Nancy, we'd like to finish off with some rapid fire. I have 5 questions for you. We can go through it quickly. You ready?
I can't wait.
What's your dream vacation?
I feel like I've taken them all. I love to travel so much that every time something comes up, we just do it. And I always study the language before I go. So I know bits and pieces of like 11 different languages. But we haven't been to Japan yet, and I'm a certified sake professional. So that's very high up there. I would love to visit some of the breweries. So you know what? We also still haven't been to Champagne or Burgundy, and we're wine nerds as well. So I would love to take a cooking class while traveling. And I think Champagne and Burgundy would be really great places for that.
I think it'd be great options.
Yeah.
Do you prefer paper or audiobooks?
Well, definitely paper because I have otosclerosis and wear a hearing aid. For Zoom conversations like these, I wear this special bone conduction headset. So I can't listen to audiobooks very easily at all. So, and I love paper. I find it really, it's de-stressing to follow the words across a physical page and to turn those pages.
I do such a terrible job at reading paper books these days, but I just actually finished one while I was traveling to South
You
Africa.
didn't fall asleep?
I didn't. I was on a plane, so I sort of had, I fell asleep at some point, but I had enough hours with, it's 37 plus hours door to door my trip. So I have time to get some book time in.
Wow. No kidding. Well, I remember you saying on one of the earlier episodes that reading paper books makes you fall asleep. So
yep,
I'm glad you finished one. Good for you.
I did. Yeah. You only have 20 minutes to exercise. What would that exercise be?
Oh, that's easy. Dance. I love Just Dance in particular, following along the moves on the screen. Yeah. That's an easy 20-minute one too, because you can fit in like 3 or 4 songs easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a quality that you look for in a friend?
In a friend. Oh gosh. Oh, this is a hard one because honesty would be the thing, but not just honesty from them, but also benefit of the doubt, because I'm very honest. And sometimes I think I can be a little painfully honest. And so you got to give me the benefit of the doubt if you're my friend, because I want honesty from you, but I'm going to deal it back. So benefit of the doubt, I think, is pretty important.
That's great. Last question. What would your final meal be?
Oh, that's an easy one. Spanish tortilla. It's my absolute favorite food. My mom's from Argentina, and we lived in southern Spain when I was a little girl, and Spanish tortilla is a very popular dish in both of those. It's kind of like a frittata, but it's not made in the oven, and there's no cheese in it. So it's just so simple. Olive oil, potato, onion, and then egg to hold it all together. God, I want one right now, Zane!
Sounds delicious.
All right, well, maybe I'll make one for dinner tonight.
Maybe. Nancy, I truly appreciate all the time, and thank you for reaching out to me and asking to be a guest on Protea Conversation. It means a ton to me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking my offer, we'll call it, and saying yes. That actually sounds delightful. I really, really appreciate it.
And with that, we ended another Protea Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today we've gained insight from our guest and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Protea Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening, be kind, and goodbye from Protea Conversations.